My uncle worked as a security guard at Yamakawa Psychiatric Hospital until the night he found the nurse who had been dead 20 years. The hospital closed in 1998 after a series of patient deaths that made national headlines. But the building remained, and someone still needed to watch over it. Uncle Kenji took the job because the pay was good and the work seemed simple. Walk the halls twice each night, check that urban explorers hadn't broken in, file a report. The first few weeks passed without incident, but then the elevator started moving on its own. Not random movement. It would go to the fourth floor at exactly 2:17 a.m. every night. The fourth floor, the psychiatric ward. Kenji mentioned it to his supervisor, who just shrugged and said old elevators do strange things. Then came the footsteps in the hallway above him. Soft, measured steps like someone making rounds. But when he climbed to the fourth floor to investigate, the hallways were always empty. The footsteps would stop the moment his own began. One night in March, the elevator doors opened while he was doing his midnight round. A woman in a nurse's uniform stepped out. Her uniform was pristine white, perfectly pressed from another era entirely. She walked past him without a word, heading toward the psychiatric ward. Kenji called out, asking who she was, how she had gotten in. She turned, and he saw her face was gray as old hospital sheets. Her eyes were hollow, sunken deep into her skull. The night shift never ends. Not for those who truly care. Kenji followed her to the fourth floor, but she had vanished. In the morning, he researched the hospital's history. Nurse Tanaka Miyuki had worked the night shift 30 years. She died of exhaustion in 1995, found at her station at 6 a.m. The newspaper said she had refused to take a single sick day in 3 decades. Patients need someone to watch over them, she always said. Kenji quit the next day, but he told me something that still haunts. The elevator still goes to the fourth floor, 2:17 a.m. And sometimes, the new security guard sees a nurse who doesn't know her shift ended 20 years ago. They sealed room 13 at Minami Mental Hospital in 1987, but the patient inside refuses to accept his discharge. My friend Yuki works for a demolition company hired to tear down the old building. The hospital has been abandoned for 15 years, slowly rotting in the Saitama country. When Yuki's crew arrived, they noticed something odd about the building plan. The second floor showed rooms numbered 11, 12, 14, 15. Room 13 was missing entirely. But when they walked the actual hallway, the door was there. Heavy steel, painted institutional green, with 3 deadbolts. A small observation window had been painted black from the inside. Probably just store it, Foreman said, but his voice wavered. The first day of demolition went smoothly, until they reached the second floor. Room 13's door wouldn't budge, even with a crowbar. More concerning was the sound from inside. Scratching, slow, methodical scratching against the door. Probably rats, Yuki muttered, but rats don't scratch in patterns. 3 scratches, pause, 3 scratches, pause. That night, Yuki researched the hospital's closure. The records were sparse, but he found a single newspaper article from 1987. Patient in room 13 had refused all treatment, all food, all human contact for months. He would only scratch on his door 3 times every few seconds. The staff found him dead one morning, fingertips worn to bone. The door had been scratched completely through in one spot. They sealed the room immediately, and the hospital closed 6 months later. The next day, Yuki brought an angle grinder to cut through the door. The moment the blade touched the metal, scratching inside became frantic. Desperate, angry, when the door finally fell inward, the room was empty, except for the walls. Every surface was covered in scratches, deep gouges that formed words. Not ready, not ready, not ready. Scratched over and over, thousands of times. Yuki quit that day. The demolition was called off when the new crew heard scratching from inside the sealed wall. Some patients, they realized, never accept their discharge. The old medication cart still makes its rounds at Kita Psychiatric Hospital, even though the last nurse quit 3 years ago. This happened to my cousin Akira, who works maintenance for the city. He was assigned to winterize the abandoned hospital before the building's scheduled demolition. The work was simple: drain the pipe, board the windows, disconnect utility. Akira had done it dozens of times with other abandoned buildings, But Kaidan Psychiatric was different from the moment he stepped inside. The hallways still smelled of disinfectant and something else, something medicinal and bitter. His first day went smoothly until he heard the wheel. Squeaky, uneven wheels rolling down the corridor above him. Someone pushing a cart, stopping at regular intervals. "Hello," Akira called out, but received no answer. When he climbed to the second floor to investigate, the hallway was empty. But he could smell medication, pills, liquid prescriptions at distinct hospital pharmacies. The next morning, Akira arrived early and positioned himself on the second floor. At exactly 9 a.m. the sound began, wheels turning, growing closer. A medication cart appeared at the end of the hallway, moving by itself. It was old, dented, loaded with pill bottles and small paper. The cart stopped at room 201, paused, then continued to room 203. At each stop, pills would rattle in their bottles, as if being dispensed. Akira followed at a distance, watching the impossible procession. The cart completed its route, visiting every patient room on the floor. When it reached the end of the hallway, it simply faded away. That afternoon, Akira found the hospital's old staff records in the basement. Nurse Watanabe had worked medication rounds for 22 years. She died of a heart attack while pushing her cart, found collapsed in room 203's doorway. Her final words to the paramedic: "The patients need their medication." The next day was Akira's last. He arrived to find paper medication cups lined up outside every patient room. Each cup contained a single pill, fresh pills still warm. When the demolition crew arrived the following month, they found medication cups outside every room. They filled them every morning at 9 a.m., whether anyone was there to take them or not. The isolation ward at Higashi Mental Hospital has a door that opens by itself. You don't want to see what's trying to get out. This story comes from my neighbor, Sato-san, who worked as a janitor there in the 1990s. The isolation ward was where they kept the most dangerous patients. Soundproof room, reinforced walls, doors that locked from the outside with heavy bolts. Sato-san cleaned those rooms every morning after the night shift left. It was unpleasant work, but necessary and well paid because few people wanted the job. The isolation ward had 12 rooms, but room 7 was always empty. Structural damage, the head nurse would say, but Sato-san noticed the door was perfectly intact. More than intact, it was reinforced with additional steel plates. 5 locks instead of the usual 3. One Tuesday morning, Sato-san arrived to find room 7's door standing open. All 5 locks were intact, still engaged. The door had somehow opened despite being locked. Inside, the room was completely destroyed. Padding torn from the wall, deep gouges in the concrete, scratches that looked almost desperate. But there was no way in or out except through the locked door. Sato-san reported it, and maintenance sealed the door with welding equipment. The next week, it happened again. The welded door was open, the room destroyed. This time, Sato-san found something else. A patient file, decades old, buried in the room's destroyed padding. Patient 247, Yamada Taro, admitted 1973 for violent episodes and claims of invisible torment. The file noted that Yamada would tear apart his room every night, claiming he was trying to escape something. "They're coming through the walls," he would scream. "They want me to join them." Yamada died in room 7 in 1985, found one morning having apparently torn his own fingernails off, trying to claw through the concrete wall. The room was sealed immediately after. Sato-san requested a transfer that same day, but before he left, he saw something that still haunts him. Standing in the doorway of room 7 was a figure, translucent, desperate. It wasn't trying to get out, it was trying to keep something else from getting in. The hospital closed 3 months later when staff reported that all 12 isolation rooms were opening by themselves. Some doors, Sato-san learned, don't open because the lock is broken. They open because something finally won the battle inside. They found the final patient record at Nishi Psychiatric Hospital 20 years after it closed, but the patient it describes was never admitted. My sister works for a document preservation company hired to digitize old medical records. Most abandoned hospitals have rooms full of patient files that need to be properly archived or destroyed. Boring work, but legally required and sometimes disturbing. Nishi Psychiatric had been closed since 1998. but its basement records room remained untouched. Thousands of files in neat rows, organized by admission date and patient number. My sister Mika worked methodically through the file, scanning each page into the digital archive. Most were routine: admission forms, treatment notes, discharge summary. But on her third day, she found a file that didn't belong. Patient 999 admitted December 31st, 1999, but the hospital had closed in 1998. The file was thick, hundreds of pages of treatment notes written in different handwriting styles. Different doctors, different nurses, all treating the same patient over the course of a single night. The patient's name was listed as everyone who died here. The admission notes were disturbing. Patient presents with multiple personalities, each claiming to be a former patient of this facility. Patient knows intimate details about deceased patients spanning 30 years of hospital operation. Patient claims to be collecting those who died with unfinished business. The treatment notes grew increasingly frantic as the night progressed. 3:15 a.m., patient now speaking as Tanaka, deceased 1987. Knowledge of private conversations between Tanaka and his doctor. 4:42 a.m., patient has manifested physical symptoms matching Sato's final illness. This is medically impossible. 5:55 a.m., all staff report seeing additional patients in halls. Security cameras show only patient 999. The final entry was written at 6 a.m. Patient 999 has discharged him. Before leaving, patient stated, "Thank you for letting us say goodbye properly." All missing patients from hospital records now accounted for. Mika cross-referenced the file with hospital admission record. Every name mentioned in patient 999's file corresponded to someone who had died at the hospital without family, without proper funeral rites. Patients whose bodies were unclaimed, buried in unmarked graves. The next morning, Mika found something else in the basement. A guest register signed by hundreds of names, all dated December 31st, 1999. Every signature matched the handwriting in their respective patient files. At the bottom of the register, in different handwriting, "Thank you for hosting our final reunion." Mika completed the archive project that week. She never found another anomalous file, but sometimes late at night, she wonders if patient 999 is still out there, still collecting the forgotten, still giving them one last chance to be remembered properly.